She discovered her husband was brutally scarred protecting their child from a bully, so she took evidence to federal agents. The autumn sun was quietly setting over the small town of Heartland, Kansas. In the little house at 123 Maple Street, Emily Thompson was preparing dinner while watching her daughter play in the yard through the kitchen window. Her face held the gentle kindness that comes from years of married life. "Lily, Daddy will be home soon, so please put away your toys." 5-year-old Lily turned around at her mother's voice. The little girl with golden hair tied in 2 braids brightened her large blue eyes, inherited from her mother, as she hugged the doll she was holding close to her chest. "Mommy, when is Daddy coming home?" "Very soon. You must be hungry, are you not? Tonight we are having your favorite pork chops." Lily clapped her hands happily and hurried to put away her toys. Emily smiled and returned to the stove. After 10 years of marriage, this ordinary, warm daily routine was her most precious treasure. Her husband, Michael, worked as a machinist at the town factory. Tall and solidly built, he always came home in his work clothes, his hands covered with thick calluses, proof of his honest labor. Emily worked part-time at the local supermarket, and together their combined income was not wealthy. But it was enough to maintain a comfortable life for their family of 3. The sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. As always, Michael's voice called out, "I am home. Welcome home, you must be tired." Emily turned around to greet her husband, but today Michael seemed a little different than usual. His complexion was poor, and sweat beaded on his forehead. As Emily approached him, removing her apron, he gave her a weak smile. "Are you okay? You do not look well, just a little tired." "I have been working overtime lately," Michael said, forcing brightness into his voice when he saw his wife's worried expression. "How was Lily today?" "Daddy." Lily ran over and hugged his legs. Michael tried to lift his daughter but grimaced for a moment. Emily did not miss that expression. "Are you really okay?" "Yes, no problem. I will be fine after some rest during dinner." Michael was quieter than usual. Even while Lily cheerfully talked about her day at school, he occasionally pressed his hand to his stomach. Emily tried to talk to him several times, but Michael only replied with his usual, "I am fine." That night while Emily was cleaning up in the kitchen, she heard a pained groan from the living room. She hurried over to find Michael curled up on the sofa. "Michael, what is wrong?" "My stomach, it hurts," he said. His face was drenched with sweat and his lips had turned pale. Emily rushed to get the thermometer. He had a high fever. She had never seen Michael, who rarely got sick and was known for avoiding doctors, looking so miserable. "I am calling an ambulance." "No, wait. Let us see how I feel in the morning." But during the night, Michael's condition worsened. Severe abdominal pain and vomiting made it impossible for him to sleep. Emily did not hesitate to call an ambulance. The hospital examination revealed a suspected case of appendicitis, and the doctor said hospitalization would be necessary for detailed tests. The next day, Emily visited the hospital with Lily. Seeing Michael receiving an intravenous drip in the white hospital room, Lily anxiously squeezed her mother's hand. "Daddy, does it hurt?" "I am okay now, Lily. The doctor is going to make me better." Michael gently stroked his daughter's head. Emily sat beside her husband's bed and took his hand. Her husband's usually strong hand felt terribly cold today. On the drive home from the hospital, Emily reflected on the past few weeks while driving. Michael's hospitalization had been sudden, but thinking about it carefully, there had definitely been changes in her husband recently. About 3 weeks ago, Michael's arrival time had started getting later. Usually he would be home by 6 o'clock in the afternoon, but it became common for him to arrive at 7 or 8 o'clock. Seeing her husband come through the front door with an exhausted expression, Emily understood that work at the factory must have gotten busy. "You were late again today." "You must be tired." Emily would say her usual words of comfort, and Michael would respond with a bitter smile. "Actually, a new project started. Looks like I will be working overtime for a while." As Emily wiped the sweat from her husband's forehead, she had noticed the trembling in his hands. She had thought it was due to fatigue, but now she wondered if there might have been another reason. Emily looked at Lily in her child's seat in the rearview mirror. Her daughter had also been changing recently. Previously, when she came home from school, she would often work on her homework with a dark expression, but these past few weeks, she had been coming home with a bright smile saying, "I am home." "Lily, how has school been lately? Are you having fun?" Yes, it is really fun, Mommy, Lily answered while hugging her doll. The bad things that used to happen do not happen anymore. Bad things? Emily frowned. What kind of bad things were happening? Lily thought for a moment, then answered in a small voice. A boy named Jake was always bullying me. But he does not do it anymore. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had no idea her daughter was being bullied. Why had she not told her? What kind of bullying did he do to you? He would take my lunch or trip me, Lily answered matter-of-factly, as if talking about something from long ago. But Daddy did something about it. Jake suddenly became nice. Emily was confused. She had not heard that Michael was involved in Lily's bullying problem. Her husband loved his daughter dearly, but when it came to school problems, he was always someone who took a cautious approach, saying, "Let us talk to the teacher." After arriving home and putting Lily to bed, Emily tried to remember recent conversations with Michael. There had definitely been an atmosphere suggesting he was hiding something. When answering the phone, he had become more cautious than before, and sometimes he would look out the window with an anxious expression. 2 weeks ago, on Saturday morning while Emily was hanging laundry, she noticed Michael talking on the phone in the yard. Her husband, who usually answered phones inside the house, had deliberately gone outside and was speaking in a low voice. His expression at that time was more serious than she had ever seen. Who was that call from? When she asked later, Michael only replied, "Curtly, a co-worker from the factory." She also remembered what happened one night a week ago. When Emily woke up in the middle of the night, Michael was not in bed. When she went downstairs, she found him standing by the living room window staring outside. "What is wrong? Cannot you sleep?" Michael turned around and gave her a tired smile. "Just thinking about some things. I will be back up soon." At that moment, Emily noticed her husband's shoulders were unusually tense, as if he was afraid of something. The next morning, Emily and Lily visited the hospital again and headed to Michael's room. Michael looked better than the night before, but was still receiving an intravenous drip. According to the nurse, the detailed test results would be available tomorrow. "How are you feeling?" Emily asked, taking her husband's hand. "Much better. Sorry for worrying you." Michael looked at Lily and stroked her head. "Did you keep her home from school?" "Today is Saturday." Emily smiled. "Right, but Lily really wanted to see Daddy." Lily sat in the chair beside the bed and opened the picture book she had brought. "I will read to Daddy." A gentle smile appeared on Michael's face. In this moment, Emily felt her husband's loving nature anew. No matter how tired he was, no matter how unwell he felt, Michael was someone who always put his family first. But as their daughter began reading the picture book, Emily did not miss the faint shadow that crossed Michael's expression. He occasionally looked anxiously toward the hospital room door, as if afraid someone might enter. "Michael, is there something you are worried about?" Emily asked in a low voice. "No, nothing." He shook his head, but his answer came a little too quickly. "I just feel restless in the hospital." Emily squeezed her husband's hand again. Michael's hand was still cold and trembling slightly. In the afternoon, a nurse Carol came in to take his temperature. At that moment, Emily saw an unfamiliar man pass by the hospital room in the hallway. The man glanced at Michael's room and then hurried away. "Do you know that person?" Emily asked her husband. Michael answered while looking out the window. "No, I do not know him." But his voice clearly contained agitation. Emily was certain her husband was hiding something. In the evening, as they were preparing to go home, Lily suddenly spoke up. "Mommy, Daddy is not telling the truth." Emily looked at her daughter in surprise. "What do you mean?" Lily hugged her doll tightly and answered with a serious expression. "Daddy protected me, but he told me not to tell anyone. But I am worried because Daddy looks like he is in pain." Emily's heart began pounding violently. Her daughter's words had made her anxiety rise. Michael was definitely hiding something, and it seemed to be related to Lily's bullying problem. "Lily, can you tell me what Daddy did for you?" Her daughter shook her head. "I promised," but she thought for a moment, then continued in a small voice. "Mommy, have you ever seen Daddy's back?" Emily was puzzled. "His back? What do you mean?" Lily did not answer. She just looked outside with a sad expression. That night, lying alone in bed, Emily considered various possibilities. She could understand that her husband had done something for their daughter's sake, but she never imagined it was something serious enough to affect his health. The next day, Emily visited the hospital again with Lily. Michael was in a deep sleep due to the medication, with only the sound of his regular breathing audible. Emily sat in the chair beside her husband's bed and picked up the knitting she had brought. Lily sat on the floor, absorbed in coloring with her crayons. "Mommy, when can Daddy come home?" Lily looked up and asked. "The doctor said he needs a few more tests, so it might take a few more days," Emily answered gently while gazing at her sleeping husband's face. It was a relief that his color looked better than yesterday. Lily returned to her coloring, but occasionally glanced at her father with concern. Watching this, Emily remembered her daughter's words from yesterday. "Mommy, have you ever seen Daddy's back?" There had been a seriousness in Lily's expression that seemed beyond her 5 years. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Nurse Carol came in to take his temperature. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to take his temperature." Carol tried to wake Michael, but he was sleeping deeply due to the medication. "I will come back in a little while. In the meantime, would you two like some coffee in the break room?" "Thank you, but we will stay here," Emily replied with a smile. After Carol left the room, the hospital room was enveloped in silence again. Emily continued her knitting, but could not concentrate. Michael's changes, Lily's bullying, and her daughter's mysterious words. Everything was spinning around in her head. Suddenly Lily stood up. She put down her crayons and turned toward her mother. "Mommy!" Emily looked up from her knitting. She noticed her daughter's expression was different than usual. In Lily's blue eyes was a deep sadness that did not match her age. "What is it, Lily?" Her daughter tugged at Emily's sleeve with her small hand. Then, leaning close to her ear, she said in a whisper-like small voice, "Mommy, do you know the truth about Daddy's back?" Emily's heart began beating violently. It was the same question as yesterday, but this time there was more urgency in her daughter's voice. "What? What do you mean by that?" Emily asked back in confusion. She placed her knitting on her lap and faced her daughter. Instead of answering, Lily approached her father's bed. Emily hurriedly stood up and tried to stop her daughter. "Lily, Daddy is sleeping, so do not wake him up." But Lily did not listen to her mother's restraint. With her small hands trembling, she reached for the sheets where Michael was lying. "Lily, what are you doing?" Emily's voice contained anxiety. Without turning around, her daughter began quietly pulling back the sheets on her father's backside. Michael was sleeping on his side with his back facing Lily's direction. "Stop it, Lily. Daddy will catch cold." Emily reached out to stop her daughter, but at that moment, Lily completely pulled back the sheets. The air in the hospital room froze instantly. It took Emily several seconds to understand the scene before her eyes. Michael was wearing a hospital gown, but the back part had rolled up, and what appeared there changed Emily's world in an instant. Across Michael's entire back, vivid scars were etched. Emily's breathing stopped, and the blood drained from her face. Her hands trembled, and her knees began shaking uncontrollably. The scars were clearly man-made. Deep, cruel wounds that looked like they had been made with a knife or some other sharp blade ran countless times across his back. Some of the scars even looked like letters. The words "do not" and "touch" could be clearly read, painfully carved into his skin. What is this?" Emily's voice trembled, unable to form words. Among the scars, there were both new and old ones mixed together. The wounds that appeared to have been made recently had not completely healed yet, with some parts still red and swollen. On the other hand, the wounds that seemed to have been made weeks or months ago had already become scars, but their depth and cruelty remained unchanged over time, carved into Michael's back. Emily covered her mouth with her trembling hands. Nausea welled up inside her. Her beloved husband had been subjected to such terrible violence, and not just once or twice. Looking at the number and condition of the scars, it was clear this had been going on for a long time. "Lily, did you know about this?" Her daughter looked up at her mother with sad eyes. Tears were pooling in her large blue eyes. "Yes, I saw it when Daddy was taking a bath. Daddy said I should not look, but Lily's voice was small and trembling. Daddy looked like he was in pain, but he told me he was okay." Emily was torn between wanting to hug her daughter and wanting to examine her husband's scars more closely. Despite receiving such violence, Michael had never said a word to his family. Every day he went to work normally, came home, played with his daughter, and was kind to his wife. Who did this to Daddy?" Emily murmured as if talking to herself. At that moment, Michael made a small groaning sound. The medication might be wearing off. Emily hurriedly tried to put the sheets back in place, but her hands were shaking and she could not do it well. "Mommy, Daddy is going to wake up," Lily said worriedly. Emily finally managed to arrange the sheets and return to her original position, but her heart continued beating violently, and her mind was in chaos. What did those scars mean? Who had done such things to Michael, and why was it related to Lily's bullying problem? Her daughter's words echoed in her head. "Daddy protected me, but he told me not to tell anyone." Emily gripped the back of the chair with trembling hands. Everything was beginning to connect. Michael's change in arrival times, his anxious expressions, his secret phone conversations, and the sudden end to Lily's bullying. Her husband had confronted someone to protect their daughter, and as the price for that, he had received this cruel violence, Michael. Emily looked at her sleeping husband's face as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Why did you not tell me? Why did you suffer alone?" Lily took her mother's hand. The small, warm hand reminded Emily of reality. "Mommy, Daddy is a hero." But he looked really hurt. Her daughter's words contained a deep understanding that seemed beyond a 5-year-old child. "I promised Daddy I would keep the secret, but I do not want Daddy to be in pain anymore." Emily hugged her daughter. Lily had also understood and endured this frightening situation in her own way. All 3 family members had each carried their own pain while trying to protect each other. Michael made another small groaning sound. This time it seemed like he might open his eyes. Emily wiped her tears and desperately thought about how she should face her husband when he woke up. Michael's eyelids slowly opened. At first his gaze was hazy, but gradually it came into focus. He stared at the ceiling, then slowly moved his head to look toward his wife and daughter. "Emily. Lily." Michael's voice was hoarse, but his eyes, looking at his family, held gentleness. Emily looked at her husband's face while desperately trying to control her own expression. But the shock of those scars was not something that could easily disappear. Her hands trembled slightly on her knees, and her lips had turned pale. Michael immediately noticed his wife's distress. With the intuition of a long-married couple, he sensed that something had happened. When his gaze moved to Lily, he noticed their daughter had tears in her eyes. "What is wrong? What happened?" Michael tried to sit up but could not move well, because he was still connected to the intravenous drip. Emily answered in a trembling voice, "Michael, we saw it." Michael's face instantly turned pale. "Saw what?" But his expression told the whole story. Michael already understood what his wife had seen. He took a deep breath and looked up at the ceiling. "Emily, let me explain. Explain." Emily's voice was shaking. "What are those wounds? Who did that to you?" Michael looked at Lily. His daughter was sitting by his knees, holding his hand with her small hands. "Lily, could you wait in the hallway for a little while? Mommy and Daddy need to talk." "No." Lily shook her head. "I want to listen too. I want to know why Daddy is hurting." Emily was surprised by her daughter's determination. It was a strength of will that seemed beyond a 5-year-old child. After a long silence, Michael slowly began to speak. "All right, you both have the right to know the truth." He took his wife's hand. "Emily, did you know that Lily was being bullied at school?" Emily nodded. "I heard about it yesterday in the car." "But why did you not tell me?" "Lily told me about it a month ago." Michael gently stroked his daughter's head. "At first I thought I would talk to the teacher about it. But when I found out the other child was Jake Morrison, everything changed." "Morrison." Emily frowned. That name sounded familiar. Toni Morrison's son. Michael's voice contained fear, the son of the man who controls this town's underworld. Emily gasped. The name Toni Morrison was known to every resident of Heartland. On the surface, he ran a construction company, but in reality, he was rumored to be involved in various illegal activities. Even the police could not touch him. Jake was taking Lily's lunch and pushing her in the hallways. Michael clenched his fists. The teachers were looking the other way too. They were afraid to oppose the Morrison family. "So you?" "Yes." Michael nodded. "I went to see Toni directly. It was to protect our daughter." Emily was shocked by her husband's decision. Michael was usually a pacifist who avoided conflict, and yet he had stood up to the most dangerous man in town. "At first, I thought I could resolve it through discussion," Michael continued. I went to Morrison's office and asked if he could talk to his son, Jake, about stopping the bullying of Lily. And what did he say? Michael's expression darkened. Morrison laughed and said, "Whatever my son does is my son's business. It is your daughter's fault for being weak." Lily began quietly sobbing. Emily pulled her daughter close while listening to her husband's story. "I lost my temper. I said back, 'My daughter is not weak. Your son is the one doing the bullying.'" Michael smiled bitterly. "That was my mistake." "What happened?" "Morrison had his men hold me down. And he said, 'If you have a complaint about my son, you will pay the price.'" Emily's hand covered her mouth. She was beginning to understand the meaning of those scars. The first wound was made. Then Michael reached back toward his back. The words, "Do not touch my son," were carved with a knife. "When I came home covered in blood, you were away on business." Emily could not stop crying. Her husband had experienced such a terrifying ordeal alone. But that was not the end of it, Michael continued. "Morrison said, 'If anyone else approaches my son, you will pay the price for that too,' meaning, yes, if anyone bothered Lily, I would be hurt. But conversely, as long as I was being hurt, Lily would be safe." Emily was overwhelmed by the magnitude of her husband's sacrifice. Michael had been using his own body as a shield to protect their daughter. "After that, Morrison's men started calling me once a week." Michael's voice was matter-of-fact, but there was deep pain beneath it. Under the guise of regular warnings, they would inflict new wounds. But as a result, Jake stopped approaching Lily. Lily looked up at her father. "Daddy, did it hurt?" Michael placed his hand on his daughter's cheek. "It hurt, but if Lily could keep smiling, Daddy was okay." "This hospitalization too?" Emily asked in a trembling voice. "I was particularly badly beaten the day before." Michael nodded. "It seems my internal organs were damaged too. But I absolutely did not want you to know." Emily stood up and hugged her husband. She could not stop crying. "Why did you not tell me? Why did you endure it alone? I did not want to involve you and Lily." Michael rubbed his wife's back. "Morrison threatened to target the family too. As long as I accepted it quietly, you were both safe. But you suffering like this, I am okay." Michael tried to be strong. "If my family can be happy, I can endure anything." Lily came between her parents. "Daddy, I do not want you to be in pain anymore." Her daughter's voice was filled with determination. "Even if I am scared of Jake, I hate it more when Daddy gets hurt." Michael hugged his daughter, Lily. Emily looked at her husband and daughter while thinking about how to resolve this situation. They could consult the police, but considering Morrison's influence, she was not sure how effective it would be. However, she could not allow her husband to continue receiving violence. "Michael, let us figure this out together," Emily said resolutely. "It is wrong to make you bear this alone. But Emily, it is too dangerous. Just because it is dangerous does not mean the family should turn a blind eye." Emily gripped her husband's hand firmly. "We are family. Let us fight together." Michael felt his wife's strong will. The time had finally come when he could share the burden he had carried alone for so long with his family. Lily took both her parents' hands. "We will always be together, right?" "Yes." Michael and Emily answered simultaneously. "Always together." 3 months later, spring had arrived in the town of Heartland. In the yard of the small house at 123 Maple Street, the tulips that Lily had newly planted were blooming beautifully. Emily gazed at the yard from the kitchen window while reflecting on the events of the past few months. After Michael's discharge from the hospital, she and her husband made a brave decision. They contacted Federal Bureau of Investigation agents and testified about Toni Morrison's illegal activities. At first, they were dominated by fear. Afraid of Morrison's retaliation, the whole family would huddle together whenever they heard sounds at night. But Michael's testimony became decisive evidence. The scars on his back were undeniable proof of systematic violence over many years. The investigation proceeded more quickly than expected. Morrison was indicted on multiple charges, including tax evasion, extortion, and assault, and was currently serving time in federal prison. His son, Jake, was sent to juvenile detention, and Lily's school life had completely returned to peace. "Mommy, Daddy is home," Lily's bright voice rang out. When Emily turned around, she could see Michael lifting their daughter at the entrance. The scars on her husband's back still remained, but there was no longer any shadow of the former anxiety in his expression. "Welcome home. You are early today." The factory manager told me to value time with my family. Michael kissed his wife. Besides, is there not a parent-teacher conference at Lily's school today? Emily smiled. The old Michael would have avoided the parent-teacher conference using work as an excuse, but now he was different. He put family first and had become actively involved in Lily's school life. At the dinner table, Lily was happily talking about what happened at school, about making new friends, finding interesting books in the library, getting good grades on math tests. The teacher said, "We are a courageous family," Lily said proudly. Michael and Emily looked at each other. The townspeople knew that they had fought against the Morrison family. At first, they were sometimes looked at with curiosity, but now they were regarded with respect. "Lily, what do you think courage is?" Emily asked her daughter. Lily answered thoughtfully, "Protecting important people even when you are scared." "That is right. But there is one more important thing." Emily took her daughter's hand. "Not fighting alone, supporting each other as a family." Michael nodded. "For a long time I tried to solve problems by myself, but that was wrong. True strength comes from being together as a family." Lily took both her parents' hands. "We will always be together no matter what, right?" "Yes," Michael answered firmly. "No matter what happens, the family stays together." That night, Emily lay in bed next to her husband and spoke quietly. "Michael, your scars may never heal, but our bond has become stronger than before." Michael squeezed his wife's hand. "Emily, for a long time I thought I was protecting the family, but actually, you saved me. That is what families do. We save each other." Outside the window, the spring wind scattered cherry blossom petals. True peace had finally come to the Thompson family's small house. The next morning, before leaving for the factory, Michael watered the tulips in the yard. The flowers that Lily had planted seemed to symbolize the family's new beginning. "Daddy, are the flowers pretty?" Lily stuck her head out the window and asked. "Yes, they are very beautiful," Michael smiled, "because you took good care of them. Families are the same, are they not? When everyone takes good care of them together, they become beautiful." Michael was moved by his daughter's words. A 5-year-old child naturally understood a truth that even adults find difficult to grasp. That evening, Emily was interviewed by a local newspaper reporter. It was a request to cover the current situation of the victim's family as a follow-up to the Morrison case. "What do you value most right now?" the reporter asked. Emily thought for a moment before answering. "Daily life with my family, the time waiting for my husband to come home, my daughter's laughter, the time we all gather around the dinner table, things I used to take for granted. Now I truly understand how precious they are." The article was published in the newspaper the following week and received sympathetic responses from many readers. Particularly, the content advocating the importance of family bonds gave hope to families facing similar difficulties. As the seasons changed, summer arrived. In the Thompson family's yard, Lily had begun growing new vegetables. Small tomato and cucumber seedlings were growing under the sunlight. "Next spring, let us plant even more flowers," Emily said to her daughter. "Yes, Daddy will plant them with us too," Lily answered happily. Michael looked at his wife and daughter while pledging in his heart. This time, he would protect this family's happiness in the right way, and when difficulties came, he would never face them alone. They had learned that true family bonds mean sharing each other's pain, celebrating joy together, and facing any difficulty as one.